So in this film, we're looking at how to create a bit of an old master kind of background from a basic kind of grey. And we can see over on the right hand side here what we're going to be working through. We're going to start ourselves off with a simple kind of image, a portrait on a grey background. We're going to end up cutting her out, but not in the first stage. We're going to add a background texture to it, and then we're going to add a darker background texture just by a change of blend mode. Then we're going to go into add a levels adjustment to darken that just a little bit more, and then we're going to go and add a black and white kind of look and feel to the image itself. So let's head over to the kind of the raw image. Now, it hasn't really had any work done in raw at all. Okay, it's just been opened up, and the first thing I want to do is kind of go ahead and actually add some texture. Now, this is a texture that I've kind of just created, changed and kind of collected and over the years. So I'm just going to kind of just drag this on. Now, the first thing we're going to see is that when I drag it on, it's too small. And even though I could go up into edit and free transform or transform it, by just kind of dragging onto the edges and kind of dragging it down wherever I want it to be, move it around so it fits. Realistically, if I was doing this more than twice, I'd be an idiot really. I should really look at what the kind of the image size is and change my background to suit the standard kind of resolution I'm going to be working on all the time. So let me just delete that one for now. Okay, remember though, to move this across, all I did was have the move tool and basically just click and hold the mouse, drag it onto the next image and then just release. Okay, and that's where it was. Now, if I went to the image size here, so image size, I'd see that this resolution of this file is 5800 or close to it. All right, that's really what we want to work to, if that's our standard kind of resolution on camera that we're shooting all the time. So what I want to do here in textures, I'm going to go up into image and then image size, and then I'm going to go to 5800, and pretty much now, if I just do exactly the same thing as we did, he waits for it to kind of there. All right, if I now drag it on and just let go, you can see it pretty much fills the frame. So that's good, but in workflow technique again, let's delete that one. And as we click and drag this across, before we release it, press the shift key and it centralizes this texture layer, so it kind of covers it, obviously as long as it's big enough, but it's going to centralize its size. So we're pretty much there. Now, if you felt that this background was either too light, too dark, wrong color, etc., what I'd encourage you to do is obviously make different varieties of the same background. So for me, I think this is a little bit too kind of sharp as far as its kind of veins and everything else concerned. It's also too light, yeah? So what I'm going to do to begin with is I'm going to go into filter blur, and I'm going to go into a Gaussian blur just to kind of take it out of focus. So just a little bit, all right? So it's more like an aperture depth of field that we've done here rather than anything else. If I wanted to add more of an effect, I could go into filter blur and I could actually add a motion blur on here. And then you can see it pretty much actually changes the whole dynamic. Obviously, the more we do it, the more it kind of moves everything. But I just want to kind of just shake those kind of granite veins just a little bit more, right? So just there, that's fine. And I think that is overall too light. So for me, I'm just going to Control J. Now, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't save this image. So let's save it first. Shift Control S, and we're just going to go texture for 5800, and that's really all I need to say at that point. Just save it as a kind of a 9 or a 10. It doesn't matter because it's only as a background. So pixelation's fine. And now if I want to go to darken this, Control J, let's just hit the darken mode. So, or multiply mode is much better, in fact. Okay, so let's do that one, and then well, I'm happy to actually just go ahead and flatten that straight away. In fact, so I'm just going to just go up into layer and flatten image. Now we're just going to Shift Control S, and we just add the name darker on the end or whatever shortcut that you do, and then pretty much it's ready to go. So now when I drag and drop this across here, I can drop it on, remember the shift key as we do it, and that kind of fixes it. So you can see already the difference between the light and the dark, as well as the sharp background and the out of focus background. Great, so I'm going to throw that first one away now because I much prefer the darken mode. And it's at this stage we really want to actually start a blend procedure going on. So what are we going to work with? So I would tend to work with an overlay. It's going to mix all the kind of the mid-tones together. And it's going to just give a little bit of a kind of a lovely kind of soft blend in between the two, and it works really good for this image. So I'm just going to click onto overlay for now. And the next stage I'm going to do is I think I should actually take some of the texture away from the face. Now, there's different ways to do it. I could just click onto the mask tool here, press B for brush, D for default, X to put black on top. Remember, black hides and white reveals. I'll just use my left bracket just to shrink the brush down. And then all I can do is basically start to just paint away, as you can see here. Okay, so I can do that, but you can see I've gone too fast. I've gone off towards the edges and everything else. So let's just step backwards and we'll work in a quick, cheap way using Photoshop's AI. So I'm going to select the background layer, and I'm just going to select any of the real selection tools, in this case the magic wand, and then I'm going to go up and select subject. Now, as you can see, even though I'm working on the background layer, okay, that's the main thing. I want to just select around here, and we're going to allow Photoshop AI, that's the artificial intelligence, and they're going to make that selection for us. Now, if we look in close, we're missing some of these hairs and so on, and we could get some of that back. However, because this is a blend mode, they're going to be showing through anyway. So all I'm going to do now is just press Ctrl J, and that would basically make a duplicate of just the selection of the girl. Before I do that though, I just want to go and add a little bit of feather to the edge in here. So I'm just going to go up into select, modify, and just feather. And I tend to go in and feather around about 5 for this kind of resolution. Just going to press OK on that, and that's just going to soften the edges just a little bit. Now I can press my Ctrl J, and at this stage, if I drag her on top, you can see we've got back to more like the color that we set in the first place. Okay, so you can see all I'm doing is switching the background layer on and off there, this layer 2 as it were, and by doing that you can see I haven't affected the color on the girl at all. So what I want to do though really is kind of start to mask around this image. So with the background layer 3, so let's call this face selection, just so we're talking about the same things, all right? And we're going to call this one texture. So with the clicking onto the face selection here, once more that control click will make that selection now around her, all right? Control clicking onto a selection reselects the selection as it were. Okay, at this point now I'm going to click onto the texture layer, and now I'm going to click onto the mask. Now when I just click onto the add layer mask by itself, what it's going to do is kind of just hide the selection, keep the selection around the girl, but hide everything that is behind. Remember, black hides and white reveals, but I want the reverse of this. Now, it's no big deal. All I've got to do if I want to is just Control I onto that layer mask, and that will invert it. If you want to do it in a one-step process, remember, Control click onto the background layer, and just before you click onto the layer mask, press the Alt key, and that will do the same thing for you. So now we've got pretty much a kind of a really nice kind of old master effect going on. I think because of all the tones though with this image, I think it'd be better in a more kind of monochromatic look. Before we do that though, let's just go in and add another adjustment layer, and we're going to turn it into a little bit darker. In this case, we're going to use just levels, and I'm just going to pick on the midpoint, and that's going to darken the whole of the image itself, so if you can see. However, you can see already it's created us a little bit of a mask, and this will allow me to actually just make it just adjust the layer below and not the girl's face, all right? So remember, I don't really need this girl's selection clicked on this layer. It's not doing anything at all right? What I want to do though with this one is press the Alt key as I hover between layer 1 and the texture layer. Now by doing that, the adjustment is only affecting the actual layer below. All right, so that's pretty much done. Now, if I want to, in a minute, I can go in and basically lighten here, so BDX. So if I want to make a little bit lighter behind her, okay, I just go in and just with a big brush, just paint just that little bit of a gradient behind her. Remember, by design, the lightest point of a background should be behind the shoulder blades, and where possible, never above the head, because that gives a halo effect. Okay, so we're pretty much there. Let's just change the color of the background to monochrome. So back into the layer adjustment. This time we're going to click on to black and white. And at this case, we want to obviously make sure that we're selecting just the effects from below. So again, alt click in between the two, and pretty much now we've created that effect. Because I've got the masking already done in the different layers going through, all this is doing now is turning the background itself monochrome, and that's how we've created an old master effect with the kind of the basics from the grey background. So if I just go Shift Control Alt E, that will make a new layer based on all visible layers. If I switch the others off, now we can just click that one on and off, and you can see the difference. We haven't affected the girl at all. We've added a more realistic kind of old master effect to her. The three-dimension element goes on here, and pretty much it's almost a kind of a one light, two light technique. And all we've done is added the old master in for separation. Hope you enjoy this film.